Gay Fanatic.
Hey, what's going on, man? It's your boy Tick, aka Game Fanatic, the Michael Jordan of gaming, also the Rebel of YouTube Underground. Now I'm back with yet another commentary, and this one's going to be a little early because, like I said on my last video, and if you haven't checked out that video, check it out, man. It was long. This one might be long too. Unfortunately, YouTube wants you to make 10-minute or longer videos for them to put it out there for people to see it, and so you can get more of your advertisements as well. So these videos have to be this long. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I know a lot of y'all don't have the attention span to watch a video that long. I myself don't. Just put some headphones on, listen to it while you're getting ready for work or in the background or something like that, and you'll be able to go through it. You don't have to sit there at your computer or at your phone and just watch the video unless you're into it. But anyway, today's video I had to do, man, because the console specs have come out for both the next generation consoles. What's his name? Mark Cerny? Something Cerny, whatever. He did a deep dive for PlayStation yesterday. And when I say deep dive, I mean literally deep dive. This boy was talking crazy specs that I know console gamers don't understand. And me as a PC guy, there were even things he was saying I didn't understand. I had to pull Google up to try to figure out what my man was talking about, because it was some crazy numbers he was throwing left and right. But now that we got the information on both the consoles, I felt I wanted to talk about them. So you got the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5. All right, so on Twitter, I've been seeing the extremists, the console extremists. They've been going at it with each other. It seems to be the war of the GPU and the SSD. So the GPU would be on the Microsoft side because they do have the stronger GPU. And then this SSD would be on the PlayStation side, which I don't understand. I feel like the Sony fanboys are reaching for anything they can to try to win at this point. But this round is definitely going to Microsoft, in my opinion, because the SSD, it ain't it, Chief. That ain't it. But we're going to break down the specs on both of these consoles. Because I'm pretty surprised by this leap. This is a huge generational leap. I didn't expect this. I thought they were, leap from 4 teraflops from Sony to about, I want to say 6 or so, or 7 teraflops. And I thought that the Xbox would go from 6 teraflops to about 9 or so teraflops. But these bad boys leap from 9 with variable, and we'll talk about that, and that's the PlayStation side, to a 10. And then you got the Xbox that is sitting at 12 teraflops. Now, mind you, 12 teraflops that's equivalent to a 2080 graphics card, an RTX 2080. That is like a $600 card. And this thing that is supposed to be selling for about $500 is using, or $600, I think it was $500 is using that same GPU pretty much. That is insane. Now, it is from AMD. CPUs, their GPUs, AMD GPUs are typically cheaper than NVIDIA's, because NVIDIA likes to rip us off. But they normally don't have the same amount of performance as NVIDIA cards, just to give NVIDIA some respect on that. But yeah, they definitely overpriced their cards compared to AMD. Also, AMD is losing, so that's why AMD has to do that, because in the past, back in the day when I first started gaming on PC, when AMD were the champions, they were overpriced compared to NVIDIA, and that's why I became an NVIDIA person. So yeah, it goes back and forth. Whoever does the best tends to kick their price up for their product. That's just how it goes. But anyway, let's talk about these specs, man. So we have the Microsoft Xbox Series X specs. They're using a Zen 2 8-core processor with 3.8 gigahertz of processing speed. Their GPU is a custom RDNA 2 with about 12 teraflops of power, or I don't know if you can call that power, but it hits 12 teraflops, because teraflops is really just an equation. It doesn't really dictate the performance, but it's clocked at a 1.825 gigahertz speed. It's a 16 gigabyte graphics card with GDDR6 RAM in it. So that's a lot of video RAM. They also have a custom NVMe SSD with 1 terabyte storage, 4K Blu-ray, which we expected because the Xbox One X had this, and this ray tracing technology, which is pretty cool that AMD has now introduced that. And they're saying potentially they can hit 8K resolutions. And also, I was watching a Digital Foundry video, which blew my mind because they were comparing Gears of War 5 Xbox One X with the Series X as well as the PC version, and the Series X version looked pretty much identical to the PC version. They even ran it against the 2080 Ti and the Ryzen 7 processor, and the PC version still had a better benchmark, but it wasn't by much. So that means this sucker is on par with a 2080 graphics card, which is normally about, I think, $600. That is insane. So the Xbox Series X is stronger than most our gaming PCs. It's stronger than most our gaming rigs, man. It's stronger than mine, and I'm not afraid to admit it. It is stronger than my rig, man, and way less the price. That is an unexpected leap. I did not expect this. I'm not gonna lie to you. Now, am I getting a console? No, I'm not. Because I know the NVIDIA graphics cards are coming out soon, the 3000 series, which is supposed to be a huge performance increase compared to the 2000 series. And mind you, both of these consoles are still weaker than the 2080 Ti. And these cards that are supposed to be coming out, I think their mid card is even supposed to be on par with the 2080 Ti. So these new ones that are coming out are going to be monsters. So definitely looking into getting that. That's when I'll probably upgrade my rig. But that is a lot of power in the Xbox, man. And on that video, they were talking about how they're going to update Guild Wars. I keep saying Guild Wars. Why do I keep wanting to say Guild Wars? That's an MMO. Gears of War. They want to update the multiplayer for the Series X to run 120 hertz or 120 refresh rate. These things are basically PCs at this point. If you were a console gamer and you hated PCs, you're kind of almost a hypocrite at this point, because these guys are pretty much PCs. A lot of, like, look at the Xbox Series X. It looks like a mini tower. They are pretty much PCs. You can also buy these little, they look like little cartridges for memory for the Xbox Series X, where you can actually swap them out with different NVMe SSDs. So you can always just pop them into the back of it, which is pretty cool, and change your storage. The only problem, though, is they look like they're proprietary, so they might cost a lot of money. Normally things are proprietary, cost a lot of money. So be on the lookout for that. But it's still a cool idea. Now let's get to the Sony specs. So you have the Sony PlayStation 5. Now, like I said, Mark Cerny did a huge deep dive into the specs of this thing. So it's using the same 8 core Zen 2 processors that the Xbox is using. It's just clocked a little slower on the base clock at 3.5 gigahertz. And the GPU is a 9 teraflop GPU. Same custom RDNA 2 architecture that the Xbox Series X is using. And 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 VRAM, just like the Xbox Series X. The difference, though, is Cerny was talking a lot about boost frequency, which pretty much is boost technology in their console. So what that means is there is a little bit more headroom that the CPU and the GPU can utilize to get higher clocks. So it can actually go from a 3.5 up to a little higher, and it also can go from a 9 teraflop to a 10.28 teraflops if the developers would like to utilize it, or if the game has the headroom to use that. Only thing I'm wondering is, because typically to do that, a computer would normally generate more heat. Laptops did it, they would generate more heat doing this, and what would happen is thermal throttling would follow, especially on laptops. If you have a huge gaming rig, then there's a lot of room for air to get around, so you typically don't run into that issue. But laptops are susceptible to this. They are much thinner, and they still are gaming laptops generating all this heat. So thermal throttling comes into play. So this is why people would tell you, you normally want to have a gaming desktop over a laptop, because you won't run into that thermal throttling issue. So I'm thinking that this may cause a little thermal throttling in the PlayStation, where you will lose some performance, where the frames will just dip because the console has to stop trying to kill itself. So Sony would have to have some good cooling in that system for this to work properly. So we got to see how that works, because the PlayStation 4 Pro, if you know, sounded like a jet getting ready to take off. Like, it sounded like it was on a hangar. That sucker was loud, trying to cool itself down. So we'll see how they, what technology they put in there. I think Cerny talked about it, but I probably turned at that point, turned it off and didn't care. So let me know if they did explain how that would work. but seeing is believing. Now, here's the meaty part that Sony got into. They have this custom SSD. Now, both consoles are using an SSD. The Microsoft is using a custom-made SSD NVMe, and Sony is using a custom SSD. But this SSD is unlike any SSD we've ever seen on the market. No PCs are even using this. This is something brand spanking new. To me, it almost kind of sounded like Optane memory from Intel, but it might be a little different. So this SSD is supposed to be boasting a 5.5 gigabits per second transfer rate, which is extremely fast, almost meaning that load times will be instantaneous. So like as soon as you load the game, you won't see a load screen. It's just like playing a Sega Genesis. It's just gonna go straight from the next scene to the next. You won't have load times in the games you're playing. So open world games, you don't have to worry about load times at all. You won't have to worry about those sneaky ones like the Division, where you're walking through the room and it forces you to walk until you get to a certain spot because that's it loading. You don't have to worry about that. It's going to keep the information pretty much saved up there like Optane memory. So once it gets there, it's just boom, it loads up. Now this is their secret sauce. Now I was arguing with some of my friends. They were saying that this thing was going to help the performance of the game and graphics and stuff, and I don't believe that to be true. SSDs don't tend to do that. Now they were like, well, this is a new kind like they custom made this one. It's different. No PCs even have it, so yeah, you mad. And I'm like, I don't believe that. SSDs don't tend to do that. Your GPU and your processor tend to do things like that, but your SSDs don't tend to help performance. Now, when I think they were talking about performance, as in Cerny was mentioning, was the loading and things like that. It will help performance in that. It will help performance in downloading, because the PlayStation, it took forever to download stuff like updates and things like that. It may help with things like that. But when it comes to performance of the game, I don't believe that. These guys are, running with their narratives because they want to win this war. They are reaching for straws right now, the Sony fanboys, because they lost round one. We're going to keep it a buck. Xbox definitely got it. They have the power. They have the performance in the GPU and even the processor, and it's definitely going to be better looking. The games, the third-party games, are definitely looking better on the Xbox. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Now, Sony can win when it comes to their games, because their lineup of games always tend to be more than what Xbox has. Xbox tends to only have Halo, Gears, and Forza. They make all these other games, but these other games they're very lacking in the power that the Xbox can use, and I don't understand. So Sony tends to use the most of what they got. They will make a pretty looking game with the minor hardware that they have. They're good at doing this. Xbox tends to not care. They only care about third party. So it remains to be seen. Now, I was around with the cell processor. I was around with the ESRAM from Microsoft and the power of the cloud. And none of those really came to fruition to help the games out. So the SSD, I'm kind of skeptical on it. I think it still will do, load the game fast, but all the stuff about performance of the graphics and stuff, I really don't believe that, if that were to be true. But like I said, I believe these guys were just mishearing, and they heard what they want to hear, because a lot of people on YouTube do, especially fanboys, will hear what they want to hear. And I don't think they were talking about graphical performance. And if they were, I don't believe it. I will believe it when I see it. I told them that. I recorded it. I was like, yo, I don't believe it, because they were all attacking me. I was like, I believe it when I see it. I don't think it's going to be a thing. I was around with the cell processor. Now, the cell processor did get utilized later on in the years, but before then, all the PlayStation games looked worse than the Xbox 360 games until later on, when people started recognizing how to use the cell processor. The ESRAM, to this day, has not been utilized. They had to drop a new console just to finally beat PlayStation, because the Xbox One, even with the ESRAM, did not make the performance better at all compared to the original PlayStation 4. The power of the cloud definitely was not a thing. It was only used on one game, and then it was even cut back because it still did not help as much as Microsoft was saying it was going to, and their fans were saying it was going to do. So yeah, I don't believe this SSD is definitely going to do anything with graphical performance of the game at all, because SSDs typically do not do that. But yeah, that's all I got to say, man. I just want to talk about these two Monster House consoles. I'm not lying. I'm surprised. I'm surprised that they are this powerful. I did not see this coming. I'm probably not going to pick up PlayStation 5 until 4 years later, just like I did with the PlayStation 4. only because the PCs will be leaps ahead of them once they release. So, and if Sony is dropping titles on the PC, I don't have a reason to pick up a PlayStation at that point, because I will have the much better hardware and I will still have their software that I can buy and play on the better hardware. So I will still have the better graphics, and this is good news for the PC gamers as well, man. We gotta look at this. So when the consoles take a leap, PCs take a huge leap. So it's just going to be way better graphics that the PCs are going to be able to have compared to the consoles years to come. It's going to be developers introducing new technology with graphics, new rendering techniques, new texturing techniques, new shadow techniques. We already saw ray tracing. Like, this is the good news that comes from consoles not holding back the PC gamers. And you can say that's not true. They don't hold them back all you want, but it's definitely a fact that they do hold back PCs. So this is good news for everyone. Everyone is getting an increase in performance and fidelity on whatever platform they choose to play. But anyway, I'm ending this video here. I know it was another long one, but this is what YouTube wants. If you haven't checked out my last video, please check it out. It will give you an idea of different segments and ideas I have coming for you guys in the future. Also, like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch, because the more people I see follow me on Twitch and wanting me to stream, the quicker I will start streaming, the more I will stream. This is your boy Tick, aka Game Fanatic, the Michael Jordan of gaming, and I'm going to let you guys go. I'm gone. Bye.